The breaking point. The Galactic Assembly Chamber hummed with the usual mixture of translated voices, creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and melodic tones that filled the massive structure. The building itself was a marvel, constructed from crystallized starlight and floating in the void between dimensions, accessible only through quantum gates. 243 species called this place the center of civilization, the heart of galactic governance. Ambassador Elena Reeves sat in the human delegation section, her fingers drumming softly against the smooth surface of her data tablet. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Chen reviewed notes while Commander Sarah Okonkwo maintained her steady, watchful presence. They had occupied these same seats for nearly 40 years, ever since humanity had been granted membership in the Assembly. 40 years of patience. 40 years of waiting for their turn to speak. 40 years of being treated like eager children at the adults' table. The current speaker, High Arbiter Zethran of the Korvathi Dominion, was discussing trade regulations with the kind of languid authority that came from 5,000 years of unquestioned supremacy. His species had been spacefaring when humans were still painting on cave walls, and he never let anyone forget it. His crystalline body refracted light as he gestured, creating rainbow patterns across the chamber floor. Elena had heard this particular speech 17 times before. The words changed slightly, but the message remained the same. The elder species knew best, and the younger species should be grateful for their guidance. Her tablet chimed softly. A message from Earth's Security Council. She glanced down and felt her stomach tighten. The Rylon colony. The distress signal had been broadcasting for 6 days now. 15,000 humans, along with several thousand members of younger species who had settled there, were facing complete environmental collapse. Their terraforming systems had failed catastrophically. Elena had brought this emergency to the Assembly's attention 4 days ago. It had been added to the agenda. Priority Level 7. There were 42 items ahead of it. She looked up at the massive display showing the current speaker queue. Item 63, Human Petition regarding Rylon Colony Emergency. At the current pace they would reach that item in approximately 11 hours. Maybe. 15,000 people did not have 11 hours. Marcus leaned close to her, his voice barely a whisper. The latest report came in. They are down to 18 hours of breathable atmosphere. Maybe less. Elena closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, her decision was made. She had tried playing by their rules. She had waited her turn. She had been patient and diplomatic and respectful. And people were dying because of it. She stood up. The action itself was unusual enough to cause a ripple of attention through the nearby sections. Standing during another species presentation was considered poor form unless you were asking a point of clarification through proper channels. Elena walked to the center aisle. Now she had the attention of dozens of species. The Korvathi High Arbiter paused mid-sentence, his crystalline face turning toward her with what might have been surprise or irritation. With his species it was hard to tell. Ambassador Reeves, his translated voice carried a note of condescension. You are not recognized to speak. Please return to your seat. No, Elena said simply. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems, designed to capture and translate every sound perfectly. The chamber went silent. In 40 years of human membership, no one had ever refused a direct instruction from a High Arbiter. I beg your pardon? Zethran's colors shifted toward the red spectrum, a sign of displeasure. I said no, High Arbiter. Elena walked to the central platform, the one reserved for recognized speakers. I have been waiting for 4 days to address an emergency. 15,000 beings are dying right now, and this assembly has decided that 42 other agenda items are more important than their lives. There are protocols, Ambassador, another voice called out. It belonged to Counselor Vrex, a member of the Thelonian Collective. His serpentine form coiled in his seat. Your petition will be heard in due course. Due course. Elena's voice remained calm, but something in her tone made several nearby delegates lean back slightly. Tell me, Counselor, how many of your people would need to be dying before you decided due course was not fast enough? The human tendency toward emotional outbursts is well documented. Zethran replied with the patience of someone addressing a tantrum. We understand your species is young and finds patience difficult, but civilized governance requires order. Civilized governance, Elena repeated slowly. She pulled out her tablet and activated the holographic display, projecting it large enough for the entire chamber to see. Let me show you civilized governance. Images filled the air above the assembly. 40 years of records. Human petitions, requests, and emergency appeals. Each one color-coded by response time. The pattern was damning. Requests from elder species. Average response time 4 hours. Requests from middle-tier species, 12 hours. Requests from younger species like humanity, 72 hours. Emergency appeals from elder species, immediate. Emergency appeals from younger species, referred to committee. 40 years, Elena said quietly. We have been members of this assembly for 40 years. In that time, humanity has filed 317 petitions. 12 have been granted. All 12 were trivial matters that cost the assembly nothing and gained us little. She pulled up another display. We have been interrupted during presentations 2,461 times. Our emergency appeals have been delayed or denied 93% of the time. And in all that time we have followed your protocols. We have waited our turn. We have been patient. Dr. Chin stood and joined her, his own tablet adding data to the projection. We have contributed significantly to this assembly. Human medical research has saved billions of lives across 40 species. Our agricultural innovations have ended famines on 17 worlds. Our engineers have solved problems that your species had struggled with for centuries. And in return, we have been patted on the head like clever pets and told to wait our turn. Commander Okonkwo was the last to stand, her military bearing making several delegates shift uncomfortably. 15,000 beings are dying right now. They sent a distress call 6 days ago. Earth responded immediately. We have ships en route, but they will not arrive in time. The assembly has resources that could save those lives. Jump-capable rescue ships that could be there in 3 hours. But our emergency petition sits at number 63 on your agenda. Elena looked around the chamber slowly, making eye contact with as many delegates as she could. This is the moment where we learn what this assembly truly values. And we have learned. We have learned that age matters more than need. That tradition matters more than life. That the comfort of the powerful matters more than the survival of the weak. Ambassador Reeves, you are out of order, Zethran said firmly. Return to your seat immediately or face sanctions. Sanctions? Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Yes, let us discuss sanctions. Let us discuss what happens when you sanction a species that you have systematically undervalued and ignored. She tapped her tablet one final time. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Assembly. All human diplomatic personnel across the galaxy are being recalled as I speak. All human participation in assembly projects is terminated. All technology sharing agreements negotiated through assembly channels are void. All trade agreements dependent on assembly mediation are cancelled. All human-maintained communication relays, jump gates, and navigation beacons will be shut down within 48 hours. The chamber erupted in noise. Species shouted in dozens of languages, creating a cacophony that overwhelmed even the translation systems. You cannot do this, Vrex hissed. There are treaties, agreements, legal frameworks. Yes, there are, Marcus Chin replied calmly. And humanity has followed every single one of them for 40 years. But there is also a clause in the Assembly Charter that you seem to have forgotten. Any member species may withdraw at any time if they determine that continued membership is detrimental to their interests or safety. We are invoking that clause. This is madness, another delegate shouted. The humans have gone insane. No, Sarah Okonkwo said firmly. We have gone home. There is a difference. Elena gathered her tablets and looked at Zethran one last time. For 40 years we asked for respect. We asked to be heard. We asked for the courtesy that any sentient species deserves. You taught us that asking was pointless. So we are done asking. We are done waiting. We are done being civilized while our people die because you cannot be bothered to care. She turned and walked toward the exit, her delegation following. As they reached the doors, she paused and looked back. By the way, humanity will be dispatching our own rescue fleet to Rylon. We will save those 15,000 lives without you. And then we will go home and close our doors. You wanted to treat us like children who did not matter. Fine. Now you get to see what the galaxy looks like when humanity stops trying to be part of your family. The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. Inside the chamber, the noise continued for several more minutes before gradually dying down into shocked silence. High Arbiter Zethran stood at the central podium, his crystalline form flickering with confused colors. They cannot be serious, someone said into the quiet. They will realize their mistake in return. Counselor Vrex, however, was already pulling up economic data on his own display. His serpentine face paled as the numbers appeared. How much of our infrastructure depends on human maintenance? He asked softly. No one answered. No one wanted to. Within an hour, every human diplomatic station across the galaxy received the same encrypted message. Within 2 hours, human ambassadors were packing. Within 6 hours, every assembly building had an empty human section. The word spread across the galactic communication networks like wildfire. Humanity had walked away. The young species that everyone had dismissed, ignored, and patronized had simply closed their doors and gone home. On 73 worlds, human-maintained communication relays went dark. On 41 systems, jump gates that humans had been quietly maintaining and upgrading began showing signs of degradation. Trade routes that had flowed smoothly for decades suddenly faced delays as human logistics coordinators disappeared. And in orbit around Rylon, a human rescue fleet dropped out of hyperspace exactly 4 hours after Elena's speech. They saved all 15,000 lives without asking the assembly for permission, without waiting for approval, without needing anyone's help. Earth sent one final message to the assembly, broadcast on all frequencies. Humanity thanks the Galactic Assembly for 40 years of lessons in humility, patience, and the true cost of disrespect. We have learned well. Do not attempt to contact us. Do not send delegations to our worlds. Do not expect our assistance. You had 4 decades to treat us as equals. You chose otherwise. Live with your choice. We will live with ours. In the assembly chamber, reality was beginning to settle in like cold water. The elder species sat in their ancient seats, surrounded by their traditions and protocols, and slowly started to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. Humanity was gone. And they had taken 40 years of quiet, essential work with them. The galaxy was about to learn what it had lost. The reckoning. 2 months had passed since humanity walked out of the Galactic Assembly chamber. 2 months that had transformed the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. High Arbiter Zethran stood in what had once been the most powerful room in known space, looking out at a chamber that now felt hollow. Of the 243 species that had filled these seats just weeks ago, only 112 remained. The rest had suspended their participation, withdrawn entirely, or were demanding reforms so radical that they might as well have been calling for revolution. The emergency session had been called 3 times already this week. Today's would be the 4th. Counselor Vrex slithered to the central platform, his serpentine form showing signs of stress that his species rarely displayed in public. His scales had dulled, and his movements lacked their usual fluid grace. The Kepler 9 colony cluster is reporting total system failure. Their water purification systems were human-designed and human-maintained. Without replacement parts or technical support, they have 17 days before contamination reaches critical levels. How many beings are we talking about? Asked Ambassador Tyrion of the Quellan Concordat, one of the few elder species showing genuine concern. 800 million, Vrex replied quietly. Across 4 planets. The chamber filled with uncomfortable murmurs. This was the 47th crisis directly linked to humanity's withdrawal. Some were smaller, affecting only thousands. Others, like Kepler 9, threatened entire civilizations. What about the Drayan sector jump gates? Another delegate called out. Vrex's colors shifted to a sickly green. Degrading faster than anticipated. Human engineers had apparently been performing maintenance that our own specialists never noticed. Without them, 3 of the 7 gates will be inoperable within 30 days. The entire sector will be isolated from the primary trade routes. This is unacceptable, Zethran declared, his crystalline form flashing with angry reds. The humans are deliberately sabotaging galactic infrastructure. No, a new voice cut through the chamber. It belonged to Counselor Mira of the Valoran people, a mid-tier species that had always maintained cordial relations with humanity. They are not sabotaging anything. They are simply not fixing things anymore. There is a difference. She activated her own display, showing maintenance records that made several delegates visibly uncomfortable. For 40 years, human engineers volunteered to maintain systems across the galaxy. They asked for nothing in return except recognition for their work. We gave them neither payment nor acknowledgement. We took their labor for granted and called it inferior when we bothered to notice it at all. The point remains, Zethran insisted, that we need them back. We must send a delegation to Earth and negotiate their return. We tried that, Vrex reminded him bitterly. 16 times. They refuse all communication. Every delegate we send to the Sol system is turned away at their border. Every message goes unanswered. Dr. Lonis, the Assembly's chief scientific advisor, stood slowly. The elderly Corthan looked even more aged than usual, his blue skin faded to almost gray. Perhaps we should discuss why our messages go unanswered. I have been reviewing our historical interactions with humanity, and what I have found is deeply troubling. He projected data into the shared display space. Ambassador Reeves was correct in her final speech. Every claim she made was factually accurate. I verified it myself. We did interrupt them thousands of times. We did delay their emergency petitions by an average of 72 hours while granting immediate attention to elder species. We did dismiss their contributions as primitive or derivative, even when their innovations were genuinely revolutionary. They were young, someone protested. We were guiding them. No, Dr. Lonis said firmly. We were dismissing them. There is a difference. And now we are paying the price for our arrogance. Ambassador Krell of the Thashan Empire, a military powerhouse among the elder species, slammed his armored fist against his desk. Then we force them to return. We send a fleet to Earth and remind them that they are part of this galaxy whether they like it or not. The chamber went silent. Several delegates stared at Krell with expressions ranging from shock to horror. You want to declare war on humanity? Counselor Mira asked slowly. Have you completely lost your senses? Not war, Krell clarified. A show of force. A reminder that they cannot simply abandon their responsibilities. What responsibilities? Mira shot back. They volunteered their help freely. We never paid them. We never thanked them. They owe us nothing. Nevertheless, Zethran interjected, trying to regain control, we need their cooperation. If a military demonstration will encourage them to negotiate, then perhaps it is worth considering. Over the next week, the idea gained traction among the elder species. They convinced themselves that humanity was bluffing, that a display of overwhelming force would bring them back to negotiations. 14 species contributed ships to what they called a diplomatic escort fleet. 320 warships assembled at the edge of human space. It was the largest fleet movement in 2 centuries. Admiral Krell commanded from his flagship, the Dominion's Pride. He broadcast on all human frequencies. This is Admiral Krell of the Galactic Assembly Fleet. We request immediate negotiations with Earth's government. We are here to discuss humanity's return to civilized society. The response came not from Earth, but from a single human ship that appeared on their sensors. It was smaller than a standard cruiser, unremarkable in design. Admiral Krell, a calm voice responded, this is Captain Rivera of the UNS Sentinel. You are in violation of human territorial space. You have been warned that our borders are closed. Turn your fleet around now. Krell felt a surge of satisfaction. 1 ship against 320. The humans were posturing, but their bluff was obvious. Captain Rivera, we are not here for conflict. We simply wish to talk. Then you should have accepted that answer the first 16 times we told you no, Rivera replied. You have 30 seconds to reverse course. Or what? Krell asked, unable to keep the condescension from his voice. You will attack us? 1 ship against our entire fleet. No, Rivera said quietly. Not 1 ship. The sensor displays across the fleet exploded with contacts. Ships appeared out of nowhere, dropping out of some kind of stealth system that had rendered them completely invisible. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Thousands. Admiral Krell's tactical officer stared at his display in disbelief. Sir, I am reading 4,712 vessels. Repeat, 4,712. That is impossible, Krell breathed. Our intelligence said humanity had maybe 500 warships. Your intelligence was wrong, Captain Rivera's voice carried a hint of amusement. We have been building in silence while you talked. We learned 40 years ago that actions matter more than words. You taught us that lesson well. The human fleet moved with precision that made assembly military analysts weep. Every ship knew exactly where to be, exactly when to move. Their coordination was flawless, as if controlled by a single mind. New contacts, Krell's tactical officer reported, his voice rising with panic. They are launching something. Across the human fleet, launch bays opened and released what looked like missiles. But these moved with impossible accuracy, their flight paths weaving through space in patterns that defied conventional physics. Evasive maneuvers. Krell ordered. It did not matter. The weapons were not designed to destroy. They latched onto ships, drilling through shields like they were paper, and attached themselves to critical systems. Within 90 seconds, every single ship in the assembly fleet was dead in space. Engines offline. Weapons disabled. Communications jammed except for a single channel. Your life support is intact, Captain Rivera informed them calmly. You can breathe. You can eat. You can live. But you cannot move and you cannot fight. We could have destroyed you in the time it took me to explain this. We chose not to. Captain Rivera paused, then continued with steel in her voice. Human rescue vessels are on their way to tow you back to the border. When you return to the assembly, deliver this message. Humanity gave you 40 years of cooperation, innovation, and friendship. You responded with contempt. You had one chance to treat us as equals. You failed. Do not come back. If you do, we will not disable your ships. We will erase them. And you. The communication cut off. Admiral Krell sat in his command chair, surrounded by dead systems and failed dreams. His fleet, the pride of 14 species, had been defeated without firing a single shot. The humans had not just won. They had made the entire engagement look easy. While the military humiliation was unfolding, something else was happening across the galaxy's information networks. Humanity had been quiet for 2 months, but they had not been idle. Data began flooding every public network simultaneously. Not propaganda. Not lies. Just facts. Decades of assembly records that humanity had been quietly collecting, documenting, and verifying. The corruption was staggering. Elder species had been manipulating trade agreements for centuries, enriching themselves while pretending to guide younger civilizations. War crimes committed against species too weak to fight back. Secret alliances designed to maintain power structures. Financial fraud on a scale that defied comprehension. And the humans had evidence for all of it. Communications intercepts. Financial records. Video documentation. Whistleblower testimony from dozens of species who had been afraid to speak up. The galaxy exploded with outrage. Citizens of assembly species took to the streets demanding answers. Governments fell. Leaders resigned or were arrested. The elder species that had ruled for millennia found their authority crumbling like ancient stone. In the assembly chamber, High Arbiter Zethran watched his world collapse. His own species was calling for his resignation. Other elder species representatives were facing criminal investigations. They destroyed us, he whispered to Dr. Lonis. Without firing a shot at our civilians, without invading our worlds, they destroyed everything we built. No, Dr. Lonis replied quietly. We destroyed ourselves. We built a system on arrogance and corruption. Humanity simply held up a mirror and forced us to look at what we had become. Counselor Mira stood and walked to the central platform. The chamber was less than half full now, but those who remained were listening. We have a choice. We can continue down this path and watch everything collapse. Or we can admit our failures and build something better. What do you propose? Someone asked. Reformation. Complete reformation. New leadership elected by all species equally. New protocols that give every voice equal weight regardless of age. New oversight systems to prevent corruption. And most importantly, we admit publicly that we were wrong. Not just about humanity. About everything. The vote was called. The old guard fought it, but they no longer had the numbers. Change was approved by a narrow margin. Over the following weeks, the assembly transformed. Elder species lost their automatic privileges. Younger species gained equal representation. Corruption was rooted out systematically. It was painful, chaotic, and necessary. But the question remained, would humanity care? They had proven they could stand alone. They had shown strength the galaxy had not suspected. They had thrived in isolation while the assembly crumbled. Why would they return? The new High Arbiter, a member of a mid-tier species chosen for her reputation for fairness, sent one final message to Earth. Not a demand. Not a plea. A simple acknowledgement. Humanity, the Galactic Assembly has been reformed. We have removed those who treated you with contempt. We have built new systems to ensure all voices are heard equally. We do not ask you to return. We do not demand your forgiveness. We simply want you to know that we finally heard your message. Respect is not given by age. It is earned by action. We are trying to learn that lesson. Whether you choose to give us another chance is entirely your decision. We will respect whatever you choose. On Earth, in a garden overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Elena Reeves sat with Marcus Chen and Sarah Okonkwo. They read the message together in silence. What do you think? Marcus asked. I think they might finally understand, Elena said quietly. But understanding and earning trust are two different things. Do we respond? Sarah asked. Elena looked up at the stars, those distant points of light where humanity had once tried to find its place. We wait. We watch. If their actions match their words, if they prove this change is real, then maybe. But this time we make them prove it. This time, we do not compromise our dignity for a seat at their table. And if they do prove it? Marcus pressed. Elena smiled slightly. Then we build something new. Not the old assembly with a fresh coat of paint. Something genuinely equal. Something worthy of what we all could be. She stood and looked at her friends. Humanity walked away because we had to. Because staying would have destroyed us. But if they build something worth joining, something built on genuine respect, then maybe one day we will walk back. On our terms. As equals. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Respect was not a gift granted by the powerful. It was a right demanded by the dignified. And humanity would never forget that lesson again.